Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to do my March reading wrap up today. Unfortunately, I fell into a bit of a reading slump in the latter part of March, so I didn't manage to get through everything that I wanted to read, but I think I still hit a pretty good number. So jumping right in here, I read, of course, The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor, and I did a full review on the channel of this book. I'll leave it linked down below if you guys haven't seen it. I gave this book a full 5 stars. It is currently sitting at the #1 spot of everything that I've read so far in 2021. I really enjoyed this book. It had lots of twists and turns. It stayed on track. It had me completely captivated, and I found myself, like I said in the review, I found that when I had to put the book down because I had to go to work or do other things, I was a little bit upset because I was just enjoying the story so much. So of course I fully recommend everyone picking up this book. I really enjoyed it. The only thing that was kind of a little bit annoying, and I can't believe I didn't see this at first, I actually saw it in somebody else's video. This follows a vicar named Jack Brooks, but she is female and she's a single mother. But in the synopsis on the back, it says, "The more Jack and his daughter flow." So there's a typo right on the back of the book. So I've only seen one person who has picked up on that. I didn't myself, but that was really interesting to see. But other than that, this was a fabulous book. So like I said, I totally recommend picking this one up. I've actually gone out and bought a bunch more of C.J. Tudor's books because I think her writing is just absolutely fantastic. I also finished The Saturday Night Ghost Club by Craig Davidson. I thought this was a really cute, really cozy little coming of age story. It honestly wasn't what I expected it was going to be, and that's not a bad thing. I still really enjoyed it. I just wasn't expecting it to go where it did. But I still gave it 3.5 stars. I thought this was really cute, and it was definitely cozy, and it gave me all of the, you know, spooky feels of growing up. And of course, this is by a Canadian author, and it takes place in Niagara Falls during the 80s. So we have nostalgic feels in here as well, and this is something else I would definitely recommend picking up. I really enjoyed it. The next book I read actually was not on my TBR. It is The Last Final Girl by Stephen Graham Jones, and I read this on audiobook. And this is a classic sort of slasher story, and it involves high school kids, and you know, they're coming up to their prom, and the killer is a Michael Jackson themed killer, and I really enjoyed this book. I didn't like it as much as I thought I was going to, but I thought it was really well done. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and we've been getting some nice weather here in the Calgary area, which is strange. We usually go from winter right into summer. There's no in between, so I've been so enjoying that we've been getting nice weather outside, and we're actually getting a spring. So I would pop this on and, you know, put on my headphones and go for a walk, and it was a great story to have on in the background, so I gave this one 3 stars. The next book I picked up was Cardinal Rules by Brady, and this was another new release that came out in March, and it is a slasher story that revolves around a killer that's dressed as a cardinal. And this book, it was okay. Unfortunately, I DNF'd this one at about 60%. I didn't want to because, you know, I wanted to give it its fair chance, and, you know, I was really looking forward to helping support an indie author. And, you know, like I said, I got to about 55 or 60% of the book read, and nothing was really happening. It was more of a contemporary story, and it was about, you know, these university kids, and they were going to parties, and it had themes of LGBTQ, and there were some really sad stories of bullying and stuff like that here. I just found that I wasn't invested in it. I wasn't really enjoying it. There wasn't much of anything going on in what I had read, and I'm like, you know, if I'm 60% into a slasher novel, I want there to be some stuff going on. So I did DNF this one, but I might pick it up again in the future. Like I said, I was going through a bit of a reading slump in March, so I just put this one down for now, and I might pick it up again at a later date. But for right now, it just wasn't jiving with me at all. So unfortunately, I had to DNF this one at this point. Another new release from March that I read was Shelter for the Damned by Mike Thorn. And this is a really interesting book. It revolves around these teenage boys who find a shack or a shelter in the woods. And they use it kind of as a hangout. And the main character, Mike, he kind of has a weird attachment to this shelter, and it really gets inside of him, and it starts changing him, and it starts to, you know, kind of be whispering in his ear a little bit. And it's a really cool story, and it's also a coming of age story as well. So this book was okay. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was compelling with the way that they used the shelter as kind of like this entity that kind of possessed this guy. But yeah, it was just okay for me. It wasn't anything outstanding. So gave it 3 stars. I would definitely recommend picking it up. Maybe you would like it a little bit better than I did. Another new release I read this month was Children of Chicago by Cynthia Palayo. And, you know, I did a full review of this book as well. I'll leave it linked down below. I didn't really enjoy this book. I still gave it 3 stars. I thought certain aspects of it were pretty cool, but it would go on long tangents between, you know, the actual story, and I thought the main character was just kind of unlikable, and this book didn't really jive with me. I thought it was okay. Like I said, you know, I would still recommend picking it up, especially if you enjoy learning about the history of cities and about surroundings when, you know, the story is happening. But it really wasn't for me. So again, I'll leave the full review linked down below of this one. So I also read Small Spaces by Katherine Arden this month, and this was a pretty cozy little book. It's a middle grade story that takes place in the fall, and it's got, you know, corn mazes and pumpkins and, you know, a sinister character. And I thought this was pretty well done. It was really atmospheric. I thought it was cute and cozy. So if you have a middle grader or you do enjoy reading middle grade sort of Halloween stories, this one I think is probably worth picking up. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was really cute. And the next new release, of course, that I read this month, just like everybody else, was Later by Stephen King. And don't shoot me for saying this one, but I really didn't like this book. It was okay. It was a little bit too Sixth Sense for me, and I found at the beginning of the book it was a little bit annoying when he kept alluding to things that were going to happen, but he's like, I'll tell you about that later, I'll tell you about that later, I'll tell you about that later. So I totally know where the name of this book came from. It didn't really jive with me. Like, I'm not gonna say a book is great just because he's a legendary author. It was okay. So I gave this one 2.75 stars. Really didn't jive with me all that much, and I was expecting a lot more out of this book. So I don't know if it was just because of my reading slump, but I don't think so. It really didn't jive with me all that much. And then the last book that I read this month is something that I'm still currently working on. It's The Skystone by Whyte. And of course, this is book 1 in the Dream of Eagle series, or the Camelot Chronicles as it's also known. And this is a historical fiction slash fantasy story that revolves around Roman Britain, and it acts as a prequel to Camelot and King Arthur. And I've been kind of slow reading this one because it can be a little bit of a slog. There's a lot of battle scenes, you know, epic battle scenes, and a lot of ranks of like military people, and you know, it's a little bit harder to read than something like a Small Spaces or whatever. So I've been kind of taking this one a little bit slow. I'm going to be working on this one in April as well. And again, I was in a bit of a reading slump, so something like this is going to go a little bit slower than it typically would if I was, you know, at full capacity for my reading. but still really enjoy this. I read, I believe, the first 3 or 4 books in the Dream of an Eagle series about 10 years ago, and I really wanted to reread those and continue on with the series. So working on this one, really enjoying it. If you enjoy Roman history or historical fantasy in general, I definitely recommend picking up this series. It's pretty good. So there you have it. That was everything I read in March, and like I said, I was in a little bit of a reading slump, especially in the latter part of the month, but I did have a couple of pretty good reads in there, and of course The Burning Girls turned out to be my #1 read of 2021 so far, so that was fantastic. Please, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you've read any of these books, specifically any of these new releases, and let me know what you think of them, because you know I love chatting with you guys. But until next time, stay spooky, everybody. Bye.